Hello and welcome to Understanding Video Technology and Production. We're here to talk about the pre-production, production and the technical aspects of digital video and technology. A film can be financed in many different ways, and one of the most popular methods at the moment is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding takes place on sites such as Kickstarter, JustGiving and Patreon. Crowdfunding works by offering benefits to the public for paying different amounts of money to your production, such as paying $15 for a digital download or $10 for a bunch of merchandise and an executive producer credit. Three successful crowdfunded films are Innocent, that raised just over $50,000, God Help the Girl starring Hannah Murray, that raised over $120,000, and the Veronica Mars movie, which raised almost $6 million due to the TV's cut status and existing fan base. There are many other ways of getting funding for films, such as the BFI Film Fund, BBC Films, Film 4, iFeatures, or you could just go door to door like these guys did, asking doctors and lawyers and anyone else with a high income to fund their film, The Evil Dead, or you could finance it yourself out of your own pocket. When making a film, you have to consider the different facilities available to you. These include studio hire and hiring production kits such as cameras, lights, support systems, lenses, batteries, clapperboards, smoke machines, and so on and so on. Materials. The main materials required for a film would be items such as costumes and props, but could also include pre-recorded music or even shots used from previous films. In this section, I'm going to briefly explain the following principles: color temperature, white balance, gain, shutter speed, exposure, focus, basic shot types, and lighting. Color temperature is the measure of a light source in degrees of kelvins, or K for short, and is typically divided into two types: cool colors or blues of over 5,000 degrees Kelvin, and warm colors or yellow and red, which are temperature of about 2,700 to 3,000. Even though this range of temperatures could occur naturally in video production, they are typically blue for sunlight and yellow for tungsten or artificial light, even though the majority of lights now are daylight balanced. The wrong color temperature can make your images look unnatural, and this can be controlled when filming by adjusting the white balance on the camera. On most cameras, there is the option for automatic or manual white balance. To set the white balance on your camera, make sure it's on manual mode and point the camera towards where you will be filming. Take a piece of clean white card and hold it up so that it's reflecting the light source of all sources for the scene. Zoom the camera in until it fills up the frame and then push the white balance button. You can now film your scene. For reference, here is an incorrectly white balance shot filmed outside and an incorrectly white balance shot filmed inside. Here are some basic shot types: establishing shot, long shot, medium shot, close-up, extreme close-up, tilt, pan, and point of view. Here I'm going to show you the basic principles of three-point lighting. Three-point lighting consists of, you guessed it, three light sources. There is the key light, which is the main strongest light, the fill light, which should be less powerful than the key. This is used to fill the shadows created by the key light. And lastly, the backlight, set up behind you and above the subject. This is used to add a highlight to the back of the subject and help separate them from the background. Here they are being applied to the subject.
Scheduling is essential in the successful completion of a short film. Every day has to be planned down to the finest detail to make sure the production runs smoothly, on time and on budget. This process starts by breaking down your script into logical parts for filming. This is because the first scene and the last scene of your film may take part in the same location, so you'd want to shoot it all at the same time. Other factors, such as the availability of cast and crew, also need to be considered before a rigid schedule is produced, and other paperwork such as call sheets can be created on a daily basis during production. The main materials required for a film would be items such as costumes and props, but could also include pre-recorded music or even shots you used from your previous film. Choosing the right location for your film is as important as getting the right actors, props and costumes. The right location can help immerse the audience into a film's universe, whereas the wrong location could have the opposite effect. Don't do that! If I'm doing a bit that you've already done, then just leave it and we could edit it out.
Okay. What's the next one?
Just let me finish this one.
Oh, right, of course.
It's the job of the location scout to search for the right locations, take pictures, and collect relevant information for the production. Okay, what am I on?
Oh, shutter speed.
Did you already do digital recording?
No, I've done digital recording. Pretty sure I did digital recording. I think I did. Wait, focus. Did you focus?
Focus. I'm on white balance at the moment. What am I doing?
Focus.
Shutter speed or focus?
Oh, shutter speed first and then focus. I think we've gone past that.
Oh, no, I just found it.
Okay. Yeah, I did digital recording.
Yeah, that was really long. Next up is shutter speed. Shutter speed is about how often your shutter, or the shutter effect, opens and closes while filming. If you record with a very fast shutter speed, your individual frames will be very clear and not have any motion blur. If you shoot at a slow shutter speed, your individual frames will have motion blur as the image on the screen is moving while the shutter is open. As a general rule, work out your frame rate, that's the frames per second, and double the shutter. Getting your shots in focus is obviously an important part of making your films look professional, and you should never use autofocus when making a narrative film unless it's for a certain effect. When talking about focus, we need to understand depth of field, which basically relates to how much of the shot is in focus. A depth of field is a shot where everything is in focus from the foreground to the background, whilst a shallow depth of field only has a small proportion of a shot in focus. Focusing with a video camera is simple. You zoom into the subject you wish to film and turn up the focus ring until the image is sharp. Then, you resize your shot accordingly. Video cameras work differently from a DSLR, where you can control depth of field using mainly the aperture settings. To control depth of field on a video camera, you need to change your physical position and the focal length of the lens. To get a deep depth of field, just keep the lens zoomed all the way out, and to get a shallow depth of field, position the camera far away from your subject and zoom right in. Whilst we've been editing this video together, we've done a few things along the way, and the first one is file management. This basically means organise your footage and can be done firstly by labelling your footage in a logical way, and by creating folders and subfolders to make your footage and resources easy to find. Sound and picture synchronization. For this project, we have used two cameras recording time simultaneously, the one at the front and the one at the side. To synchronize both angles, we used a clapperboard at the start of the recording and used the audio waveforms to match the two together. I've also used a few transitions, such as a cross dissolve, throughout the edit. Transitions can be a good way of smoothing out your shots or hiding continuity errors. They can also be used for stylistic effect or for showing the passing of time, but don't overuse them or some of the horribly cheesy presets available in case you ruin your work.
First, I'm going to talk about the type of production that we'll be focusing on film. A feature film is a moving image production with a running time that exceeds 40 minutes and could be shown at the cinema, on TV, or by other means such as streamed online. The first ever feature film was made in 1906 and is called The Story of the Kelly Gang, which has a running time of over 60 minutes. Anything under 40 minutes is considered to be a short film. A lot of the principles discussed next still apply to that format too. A film's crew will vary in size depending on the size and budget of the production, but some of the main roles during shooting are as follows. A director, who is responsible for the overall creative direction of the film. A producer, who is responsible for planning and coordinating the production. A director of photography, who makes artistic decisions on the camera and lighting. A camera operator, who operates the camera. A sound recordist, who records the on-set audio. A film may also bring in specialist contributors, such as a stunt coordinator, and a historical consultant, helicopter pilot, or maybe something even more specialist, such as the maggot wrangler for 28 Days Later, the hairdriver on Mary Antoinette, or the sexographer employed by Martin Scorsese for The Wolf of Wall Street. Codes of practice and regulation. For a film, this mainly relates to issues of copyright, health and safety considerations, and certification. In order to use any copyrighted work, you need to get permission from the copyright owners. You may come across issues of copyright when dealing with screenplays, music, stock footage, and so on. How video works. In this section, I'll be discussing different television standards and broadcast systems. The analogue television standard for the UK is known as PAL. This stands for Phase Alternation Line and is a type of signal that uses lines to display its image. PAL was unveiled in 1963 by German company Telefunken and first broadcast in the UK in 1967. Other formats used around the world are ATSC, which stands for Advanced Television Standards Committee, and is the means of broadcast that replaced the commonly used NTSC in America. The change from analogue to digital has brought a number of improvements, such as improved picture quality, both in terms of the resolution of the image and the lack of interference. The smaller signal that digital systems use also means that satellite and cable companies such as Sky and Virgin Media are enabled to stream more content and enable the viewer to record and watch more channels at once due to multiplexing. It also makes internet, TV and on-demand systems possible, such as BBC iPlayer, Amazon Video and Netflix. Exposure and gain. A lot of people use automatic exposure when filming, and this is okay in some cases, but if you are moving your camera's focus from, say, a window to the inside of a room, you will see the exposure fixing itself, and this makes for an unprofessional looking shot. Exposure can be set manually on the camera by adjusting the f-stops on the lens. Depending on the camera, this may be on the lens itself, on the body of the camera, or in a menu somewhere where you'll never ever find it. Basically, what you are doing is increasing or decreasing the amount of light falling on the camera sensor by opening or closing the camera's iris. In really low light conditions, you could use the camera's gain control. This is done some weird stuff. This is a way of increasing your camera sensitivity to light, a bit like ISO on a DSLR, but often results in horrible grainy images if used too aggressively. Exporting. There are many different formats in which you can export your video, and also many different resolutions, frame rates, bit rates, and so on. But here's how I'm going to export this particular video. First, in Premiere Pro, I'm going to go to File, then Export, and then click on Media, which brings up the Export Settings window. There are lots of things you can change in here, but I'm going to click on the Format QuickTime drop-down and choose H.264. I'm going to leave the preset on Match Source, High Byte Rate. I'm going to change the output name by clicking on the blue text, renaming it, changing the save location, and then hitting export at the bottom. Then sit back and wait for your render to finish. Finally, here's a film we made using some of the techniques discussed previously. Thanks for watching.